Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to this episode of The Unconnoisseur. We've digressed somewhat because the other wingnut, Matt, is not with us today. So we're not covering any of the albums from the 2001 list, but we've chosen to listen to Art Blakey and the album of the year. And I think you're going to like it. We're going to discuss that. We've got some tracks to play. And I believe that Matt has some comments that he left with you, Drew.
If we choose to play these.
Okay.
I don't know if I want Matt's opinion. Because tonight, Dad, is just the two of us. We'll see if I feel okay to add him in.
Now you're talking like the middle brother.
Yes, I am. You know, it was his idea to take a cruise, not ours.
Exactly.
He's enjoying the pool deck and all the food, and I'm sure a few drinks on behalf of all of us. But
there you go.
Hey, it's his fault, not mine.
Yeah, good. Good to go.
We'll see how it goes, though. So it's good to see you.
You too.
We have definitely dragged this night out. There's been a few days that we had to postpone. Been a busy week around here. And I know that we'll get into my week and your week here right at the end. So,
yeah, good.
Thanks for introducing this week's album. That was, it's been a great music listening to. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers from 1981. And I found it really interesting, and this is why I'm being a little snarky about Matthew. His all-time favorite trumpet player is Wynton Marsalis. And you just happened to pick an album that features Wynton Marsalis on trumpet. This is an early years Wynton. And so I was definitely interested when you said this is the album that we're going to do. So yeah. I thought it was fitting. His favorite trumpet player, and he's not here.
Well, you know, the Jazz Messengers have kind of grown on me. And obviously Art Blakey is a masterful drum player. And so you combine these artists in this album, and no wonder it's labeled Album of the Year. So,
right.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Jazz Messengers. This one had Blakey on drums, Wynton Marsalis on trumpet, Robert Watson on alto saxophone, Bill Pierce on tenor sax, James Williams on piano, and Charles Fambro on bass. I messed that up last week trying to announce it because the cover actually has a building in it, or on it, because it was recorded in Paris, and I couldn't read the text. So I thought I would get one more opportunity to swing at that and say the names correctly. So I'm going to dialogue a little bit more about the other two tracks that were added later. But speaking about tracks, what do you suppose we are going to listen to for you?
Well, Matt has a good choice, doesn't he?
But what about you?
Oh, my own. Okay. I like
Matt. He's not here. He can't defend himself.
We'll play his last.
If we play it.
He's going to have things to say when he comes back. That's sure all I got. So let's play Witch Hunt, the first minute.
I would just keep it going. I'm sorry. I'll shut it there.
I know, right? So if I was just thinking, if somebody were to ask me, so play jazz for me,
Mm.
give me some jazz music. This would be a jazz track, a track that would define jazz and what jazz sounds like. Okay, this is artful, it's smooth, it's rhythmic, and this track has spirit and drive, and it not almost, it makes you say, I want to hear more. I want to continue to hear this, maybe not the whole album. Let's hear more. I want to hear more what jazz really sounds like, and that's what this track does for me.
It's one of the reasons, and it's weird. I'm typing some things in here. I wanted to verify a couple of things, but there's a lot that floods my mind when I hear the song. First of all, it's Wayne Shorter's song from Witch Hunt, and it was on his album Speak No Evil. And when I think about what I most fell in love with jazz about, it was music from Wayne. His ability to write and compose and deliver music is phenomenal. And so to hear you say, this is how I would explain what jazz is. Witch Hunt to me as a song is phenomenal. Originally written by Wayne Shorter on his album Speak No Evil. I'm going to say more about this particular album and your very statement. What is jazz? And that is, I love Witch Hunt. So it was my first, second, and third choice song to listen to. But yeah. I struggled, Dad, this week because it's Jazz Messengers. So much great music over the years. And this album, I don't honestly know that I'd listened to it before you called it out and said, this is what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. It is a quintessential jazz album, and I'm surprised that I have not listened to it.
I know, right?
The song that I wanted to hear has as much to do with jazz as it does the legacy of the teachers of jazz. The song written Miss BC for Miss Betty Carter. And I found it interesting. I was looking for the information as I was trying to talk about Witch Hunt. I had found, and I find myself unprepared after this week for everything that I wanted to talk to. Miss BC was actually written by Pamela Watson, which was Robert Watson's wife, who was on the alto saxophone on this album, as a tribute to Betty Carter for her teaching so many musicians before and after. Betty Carter's had a long legacy of teaching jazz, just like Art Blakey. And so when I chose this, it was really as much about honoring Pamela Watson for writing a song that gives honor to Betty Carter. So Miss BC, I just want to hear the beginning of it. And what I find most beautiful about this is how the two horns are playing so tight together. So I'm going to start at the beginning, and we'll listen to the first minute. Miss BC. And of course, it's Art Blakey driving the drums. And then Wynton is going to take off with his solo right there, which is phenomenal to listen to that man blow that horn. But what struck me over and over and over again listening to that particular track, and I ain't gonna lie, it's taken me a few extra days to figure out what I wanted to listen to. Listening to it, it sounds like it's a large band. There's so much sound coming out with the alto and the trumpet playing together, but then when the tenor drops in on the lower notes, it's created this massive amount of sound to open that song. That's what hit me, is how tight they played together, how beautifully it sounded as a small band, big band sound. But on this album, Art, to me, as the drummer and the leader, is pushing forward. He's driving this bus that everybody is trying to keep up with, and it's so fun to listen to him drive.
Yeah, and I appreciate giving the background about Miss BC, because that makes a lot of sense after explaining that and calling that out.
It's so I'm going to get into it in my week in music here in a moment anyways, but to all of the teachers, music or not, I salute you. And that's what hit me. Betty Carter, Art Blakey, Dizzy Gillespie, all of these names that we've thrown out that become educators promoting jazz and blues music forward as they did for many, many years. And so that was kind of it for me. Now, we will give Matt some credit. We'll let him choose his audio clip.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in this week's episode, even though I'm on vacation. You know, it's so cool that we get to listen to this album this week, and I feel terrible that I get to pick a clip and I don't get to argue with these two on who gets to pick what clip, because I get to pick my clip, so I don't mind that one bit. My clip this week is from song number 3. And the name of the tune is called Cheryl. And please, Drew, start me at about 1 minute and 30 seconds and just play me a minute of that tune, and I'll explain why after the clip.
I'm going to cut it off there and let Matt explain exactly what he was talking about, what he wanted to hear on this.
All right, so here's the reason why I picked that clip. I picked it because I liked the transition between Wynton and the sax player. I really wanted to highlight Wynton. I'm a huge fan of Wynton Marsalis anyways, Drew. You know that, and the audience knows that as well. But the lip slurs that he does right at 1 minute and 38 seconds, those lip slurs between notes are very, very difficult. Bidoo, 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 bidoo. And he makes it sound so effortless. That's what I really, truly loved about listening to this album, is how effortless Wynton sounds as he's playing and soloing. So I also love the transition between Wynton's solo and the sax solo. We talked about this on Black Codes from the Underground album when we did the top 100 albums that shook the world, how there was a passing of the baton on, what song was it? It was Chambers Attain. And this week he passes the baton to the sax player. Again, the sax player just takes right over, right where Wynton was at, using the same sentence using the same words, he takes right over and starts talking on his solo so beautifully that it's just the baton just gets passed so smoothly, and I love that about the transition between the trumpet and the sax solo. So yeah, that's my clip. Thank you so much for allowing me to do that.
I'm glad he explained that. I want to see if I can back up the track here. So I think, Matt, what you're referring to is what happens here right now. I think that's the whole boop, boop-a-dee-ba-dee-ba-dee-doo, and it's more than tough to do on a trumpet. So I've been experiencing that after you called that out, Matt. I don't know how you do it. And I know that you could probably get away with it, but you're a good trumpet player.
Yeah.
I'm a beginner. So Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for thinking of it in advance, Matt, for having some of this. I know that you sent more information about the album and your thoughts, maybe even a rating. I'll see if I'm willing to share that. You'll have to stay tuned to see if I do. But in the meantime, it's just Dad and I. We get to dialogue about this album. So what are some of the things you appreciated most? And what did you get into this week on this album?
I listened to it over and over again. And like I said before, I don't think I could have gotten too much of it. But I had so much other music in my head as well. But I appreciated it from get to go. And the tracks that we just played are exemplary of what this album is all about. And the fact that it's recorded in Paris, I don't know, for whatever reason, that's a little bit special. I've been to Paris just overnight, basically, in one full day. And Delaney and her friend are now in France, basically. They spent a day and a half or 2 days in Paris. So I can't imagine bringing the Jazz Messengers group into Paris and then recording this beautiful music, this beautiful jazz music.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of the reflection I have for it.
And I almost thought about it with her and Grace being out in Paris, maybe send them a picture of the cover and ask if they could go find that bridgeway there. That'd have been pretty funny to do that. I can't quite tell. But I do have some slides that I am going to bring up here in a moment, and it will have the cover of the album on it. I know that Matt always asks, what do you think about the cover? But I think what I'm going to go to is, where was the picture taken? So somebody smarter than me can tell me about that later, but it was recorded in Paris, so obviously there's a picture of it. And it looks like maybe Notre Dame, but I can't tell what's in the background there. So, I, like you, had a lot of other music in my ears as well this week. But this album to me was a quintessential jazz album. I know that Matt would say this. It's been over 100 weeks that I've said it, and I want to get into the slideshow to talk about it. Whatever you do, do it to jazz. And I promise you, this week I've had a lot of jazz. Dad, you just said you've been listening a lot as well this week. So whatever you do, do it to jazz. You mentioned in the opening, Dad, that we are going off the rails and not looking at this week any of Nate Chinnon's book. We did a recap last week. We have covered already 7 albums out of that book from the year 2000. The most recent, we looked at David S. Ware, Surrendered. Prior to that, David Sanchez, Mazala. Daniel Perez, Motherland, coming out of Panama. Nils Petter Molvar on Solid Ether, and 3 more prior to that. So next week when Matt returns, we'll be back into Nate Chinnon's book going to 2001. So it's been a good break in the year. It's also been a great break for us just to be able to have Matt not here, although I do miss you desperately. But it's a good breath of fresh air from the albums of the book.
I miss his pork pie hat.
Right?
Yeah.
I almost got a set of in-ear earbuds so I could wear my fedora, but maybe later I'll put it on.
Yeah. He looks He looks good in that hat.
He does. He really does. This week, again, we're covering the Art Blakey and Jazz Messengers Album of the Year. Recorded in 1981 Paris. I do have a picture of the album cover up there so y'all can find it. I do want to highlight here on the slide, there was a reissue on the Chinese label Solid Records that offered 2 additional tracks that were recorded on a different album. That album was Oh By the Way, and it featured Terrence Blanchard, Donald Harrison, and Johnny O'Neill. So the first 2 songs on the album that you find on YouTube Music or on iTunes includes 8 songs. Those first 2 are Terrence Blanchard on trumpet. So just make sure you're prepared for that. And those songs are Oh By the Way and Duck Soup. So the original album that we're looking at had 6 tracks to it, although I just loved Oh By the Way. I'm not going to talk about that because it is Terrence Blanchard and not Wynton Marsalis. One of the things I wanted to highlight, Dad, and I mentioned this earlier, is Art Blakey as a professor. You have strong street cred when you come out of the Jazz Messengers. Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers began long before Horace Silver and he met up. And I've got a slide now about Art Blakey. And so to me, I wanted to focus on who Art Blakey was, not as much or how he impacted the Jazz Messengers and the legacy that he left. So I have on the slide now, Art was a major force during the rise of the bebop in the 40s. He played with some of the biggest innovators, which included Fletcher Henderson, Billy Eckstine, Thelonious Monk, Charlie Parker, and Dizzy Gillespie. In the mid-50s is when he formed the Jazz Messengers with Horace Silver. But you got to take a step back from the Jazz Messengers and understand that he had the 17 Messengers prior to that in the late 40s as a big band. It got unaffordable, so he shut down the big band and left the Jazz Messengers alone. It was Horace Silver that said, we ought to go by the name the Jazz Messengers. There were iterations through the 50s of the Jazz Messengers, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messenger, the Jazz Messengers of Art Blakey. So there were some different things, and Art Blakey has done his own albums, not as the Jazz Messengers, but it became synonymous, Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And his school was rigorous. Countless names of musicians came through there. Obviously, we're talking today of Wynton Marsalis being with Jazz Messengers. But you had names like Lee Morgan, Wayne Shorter, Freddie Hubbard, Benny Golson, Branford Marsalis, Keith Jarrett, Chuck Mangione. All of those names came through the Jazz Messengers and Art Blakey's school. What a teacher and what a driving force he was in the jazz music. But he pushed young musicians into the spotlight. And of course, there's a lot of quotes about, I'll stay young because I have the young whippersnappers around me. So it, to me, is a big deal to highlight Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. And we get a sample from 1981.
So I understand that Art got his start with the big bands. Is that
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes.
You mentioned Fletcher Henderson. So I'm just going to say this real quick, and then get into my week in music eventually. But I listened to Fletcher Henderson and Sugarfoot Stomp. Very cool.
Kidding.
And then Billy Eckstine, Jelly. So cool. We're talking early jazz there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so Art came through that process of big bands. So he had a great understanding of what it meant to pull musicians together and make a big sound.
Mm.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier, where it sounds like you're talking about a big band when these musicians start playing together. So, yeah,
He knew what it
makes
sounded
sense.
like, knew what he wanted it to sound like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then became that driving force to make it happen.
Right.
Man.
And
Well, speaking about you listening to Eckstein and Henderson, I found an album this week because of the history of the Jazz Messengers. You don't think of, I don't think about Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers prior to Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. However, Art Blakey's school began long before. And the album that I found was a Blue Note album, number 1521 and Blue Note 1522. I say that because I had to say A Night in Birdland, Volume 1 and Volume 2, included Clifford Brown playing with Art Blakey. And when you hear the young ladies introduce who's on stage at A Night at Birdland, and it's under Art Blakey's name, you realize that that is a powerhouse. I don't know that I paid any attention to Horace Silver ever playing with Clifford Brown, but that is who is on the piano for that album. So it is the earliest iteration of the Jazz Messengers before they were actually Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. So I really appreciated you picking this album because I found out things that I hadn't known before, including that album. So it was a really good thing. Yeah, so what a week. I have, go ahead.
you mentioned Birdland, and after you mentioned that, I jumped on it. I listened to the first of two, A Night in Birdland,
Mm.
and so that's good stuff. Yeah. Again, you said the woman that introduced it. That's pretty cool the way that happened.
Right? And we still hear it, if I go to Monk's Jazz here in town, there will be the introduction by Colin, who's the owner there, and he'll say, by the way, we are recording, but the way she says, if you start to clapping, you might hear yourself later.
Yeah.
She understood the importance of the night. It wasn't just about recording it for today. It was how many years later will you be listening to it. So I wonder how many decades later somebody says, oh, I was there that night listening to that album.
I am strictly an unconnoisseur, so I thought, Birdland, what's that all about? So I checked it out. Birdland is just jazz, venue in New York City. I hadn't known that before. It sounds pretty cool, Birdland.
Named after?
So, I'm sure.
Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
The Yardbird.
Good. Yeah.
So I can
Good.
imagine there's a lot of rich history.
Yeah.
A lot of rich history there.
Yeah.
The quote, Matt always has a quote in the slideshow, so how can I not have one of those in there?
Yep.
Is the famous one that we refer to from Art Blakey all the time. Jazz washes away the dust of everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's almost an expected quote from him, but it is such a true and honest quote from Art Blakey that jazz really does wash away the dust of everyday life. I'll interject it now as we go, but there's a young man who did a piece for his senior presentation this year, and he took the piece Fur-Elise and turned it into a blues tune and then one into a jazz tune. I went to him afterwards and realized that he really doesn't have much of a history of either of them. When he started the project, he didn't realize that they were intertwined. And so I almost said that music is what can wipe away the dust of everyday life, but I have to stick with jazz because it is a celebration after the blues. So hand in hand. Now, I got another quote, because I found much inspiration in this one as a new beginner on a trumpet, listening to Winton play. So go on and play. And if you make a mistake, make it loud so you won't make it the next time. And I think from a teacher standpoint, that's what we want.
Yeah.
Just play it loud. Then that way, the next time don't play it like that. So,
Wow. That's pretty cool.
I thought so. So,
Especially from a teacher perspective and a student perspective and a learning process. Definitely. I like it.
make it loud so you don't make it the
Yep.
next time. And now, as we say, thank you all for tuning in. Tonight's episode is a little bit sporadic. There's been a lot going on in my life this week. Obviously, Matt's not here, and I'll blame it all on Matt not being here, but reality is it's been a busy, crazy week around here. So thank you all for tuning in to the channel, to the episode. You can find us at theunconnoisseur.com. Go to the website. We do have a merch store. Matt's got some T-shirts ready to be made, some mugs, some other things, as most channels and podcasts do. You can go to iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon to hear us on podcast version instead of watching our beautiful faces on YouTube. And please, please, please hit the like and subscribe button. Hit and ring the bell for the notifications so that each week when we drop episodes, you can get notified that's out there. And Matt is super proud, as he should be, of WTUR.org. 24-hour jazz music with some breaks in between, just slight commercials and some hellos. So come to WTUR.org and listen to us on the radio channel. That is what I have for right now, and we're going to come back to what's new, old man, here in a little bit. But let's continue our conversation about Art, Winton, and everything else about this album.
You've got some things to say about it, I'm sure.
I guess I do, because you wanted me to finish that before I cut us off earlier.
Yeah.
To me, the album, and I wish I had my notes in front of me, but I can't find my notepad. To me, the album was a quintessential jazz album. And this takes me back to about number 85 on our countdown from the Jazzwise magazine. It was the 1985 album from Wynton Marsalis, Black Codes from the Underground. And that week in music, when Matt and I started really digging into the top 100, we had just started the channel 15 episodes before, listening to Black Codes from the Underground, listen to Chambers of Tain, listening to Wynton play the horn, I started to realize this is jazz. This is how I would identify and understand jazz music from here on out. It almost became my standard of what jazz should be, and that was Black Codes from the Underground. It was my aha moment, if you will. And I have to remember now that we're in 1981, 4 years prior to that album, and Wynton is tearing it up with Art Blakey on this album. So when you said this is the album that I would say to somebody, this is jazz, man.
Mm-hmm.
This album reminded me so much of Black Codes from the Underground. It hit in every way, just as a reminder, this is what jazz is.
Yeah.
It has the fast moving. It has super melody, something that you can whistle the songs to later. They're earwigs in my ear, and it is disappointing that none of us, and I'm glad, disappointing and exciting, none of us chose one of the first two tracks on the album, which was not the Wynton mix of this. But if you listen to, Oh, by the way, boy, it was stuck in my ear all week long, and I love Terrence Blanchard playing trumpet. I really do. It was exciting. But this album, even with all 8 tracks, just shebang. If you really wanted to know what I thought about the album.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
It's like it opens you up to greater understanding and appreciation for this era of jazz.
Yeah.
And where jazz came from, where it was then, and now how jazz has really evolved into so many different avenues, so many different tracks, so many different styles. And so this is besides 59, 1959, 58, I like the movement here. I like the way it evolved to 1981, 1985.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate this. And the way now jazz is evolving. And like you said earlier, we've heard music from Panama, we've heard music from Puerto Rico, we've heard music from Norway, and all those different cultures now, Germany, and how Japan, good heavens, and it all represents jazz, right? So
There, Matt and I have talked about this over the last, and you've been drawn into this conversation and kind of put on the spot a lot of it. Winton's idea and focus with Jazz at Lincoln Center being on straight jazz. Those years between really 45 and 60. Let's go back to 25 even, when Pops and Oliver and the beginning of it all. Those decades, 30, 40, and 50s, is really the beginning. It's almost, if it's the roots of jazz, and it is, and that tree trunk is built on those. I think Matt called it an umbrella this week, and it's the umbrella stand. It's the handle of it. But once you get to the first branch, you see that jazz takes a turn in the 60s, the soul jazz, free jazz. You see it moving into the funk and the electronic music, and all of these branches start to stem out from there. But the one constant, no matter what, is that albums like this are rooted in that large trunk of what jazz really is. Mm-hmm. So much movement, excitement, celebration, so much rhythm happening, but soul and melody. And I go over that over and over because Joe keeps telling us, I'm glad you can play the right notes. Now play it with meaning.
Yeah.
And I listened to last week, David Ware was doing a presentation, and I was talking to Matt about this. I mentioned in the show. Play that one note as if it's the only note that you can play. Play it loud, play it soft, play it sharp, play it flat, play it big, play it small. Play that one note with so much feeling and meaning that you could make an entire song out of it. Mm-hmm. And what Winton can do is play every note that way, and then when you string it together, it has meaning and purpose. That, to me, is that serious jazz foundation that he has really stayed strong on at Jazz at Lincoln Center. So, there.
Good.
I'm done. I'm done on that.
It sounds like you and I both really like this album. Yeah, and I'm sure the Matt doubly with you and I appreciate what this album represents.
Here, let me drop in his clip. I'll grant him this. We'll drop in his clip and hear what he has to say, and then when we get to rate, we'll go ahead and drop that in as well. But
okay,
all right. So I'm going to give you my score on this week's album. It's rough because I'm torn, and I know that, Drew, if you and I had a chance to discuss this album along with Dad, and I'm sure that your discussion has been great regarding the album, I'm torn, though. It's the half a point that I should be able to give it, but I just can't give it this week. So my score for Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers Album of the Year is a 9. The only reason that I could not go to a 9.5 or even a 10, because I do love this album so much. You know, we covered Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, the album Moanin', on the top 100 list, and I kind of fell in love with Art Blakey then, and this album is no different for me. But the reason I couldn't go straight all the way to a 10 was the emotional aspect of it. The album is well produced. It meets all of our criteria. It was just emotional for me this week that it didn't make me want to go out and listen to more Art Blakey. I really just wanted to stay right here on this album. And actually, the multiple times that I listened to it this week, I was listening for new stuff. Each time I listened to it, I loved it so much, but 9 is what I could do this week on the score. So again, thank you for allowing me to give my score even though I'm away.
Thanks, Matt, for sharing that input. It leads us to this. We all found the album extremely motivating. You wanting to stay on the album all week and listen to it, and I can't lie to you, man. I listened to the album from beginning to end probably, I don't know, at least once a day, if not more. But I did want to go listen to more Art Blakey. Does he really drive and push forward the music? As a drummer, I think he led with a fast pace. So I really did. I loved it. I loved it. Dad, I'm going to flip it back over to you because I think it's time to follow in the suit of Matt and get ready for some rating.
Okay. I struggled to not give it a 10. I gave it a 9.5. And I guess my reservation was the term awareness. I'm still struggling with what awareness really means and looks like. And so because I'm not certain what that means, I had to hold back and just rate this as a 9.5. Though
Okay.
this, and I've said it before, we've said it before, this album just blows your mind as you listen to the depth and significance of Art Blakey and these jazz messengers. What a quality list of musicians that's on this album. And Art Blakey sets a standard here. So I rated it at 9.5, and I'm good with that.
I don't think there's anything whatsoever wrong with that. And
Yeah.
Matt, I desperately appreciate yours as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've got to come at it from the same place that you guys did. I love the album. Why not go all the way to the top? I don't know. There was so much Jazz Messengers music to absorb, to fall in love with, and to enjoy. I'm at a toss-up. I really am. I had a rating, and I would think that as motivated and as excited as I am to talk about the album, I should probably be right there at a 10. But I fall right where you did, Dad, 9.5. I do appreciate, and I think maybe offline we'll talk about that awareness, and Matt mentioned it in his particular track, Cheryl, how the solos come together. It's as if we're having a conversation, you talk and I finish the sentence. And I think that's the awareness that's hard to really pick up, especially when there's a lot of notes being played. I gave this album 9.5. I loved everybody who's on it. I really probably could have been convinced by Matt to go to a 10, and that may be part of the conversation into the future. I think that honestly 6 songs on the album was a bit short. I could have used a little bit more of this group. Now, again, there were 8 tracks on the ones that we were listening to on YouTube Music and iTunes. But the 6 of them were the Wynton Marsalis group and personnel in this. I think Robert Watson, Bill Pearson, James Williams, Charles Fambrough did a brilliant job with Art Blakey. So I got nothing bad to say, which is why I can't take the half point, but I can't quite get there. I think we're going to get some more albums in the future that will rock our worlds a little bit more, but a 9.5 might as well be a near perfect score.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your week in music. What's been going on? Where you been? What's happening?
Wow. So I have a list that seems like a mile long of music that I've listened to this week. And I'll tell you, I started with Dexter Gordon and Our Man in Paris. I went to Coltrane and Giant Steps again. Brubeck, his greatest hits. And the hits just kept coming with Chick Corea, Light as a Feather. It's a sweet, sweet album.
That's a weird one for you to announce. I did that album this week.
Did you really?
Cool. Loved it.
Well, we must be thinking alike.
Great minds.
How about Gil Evans and Out of the Cool?
Mm. Mm.
Wow. I listened to Hargrove and the Vibe,
I
the
did
whole
too.
album.
Are you
Oliver
kidding me?
Nelson. No, did you?
I'm 2 for. Oh yeah, 2 for 2. I so love listening to Roy play and that album vibes.
Yeah, that's funny. That is
Light as a
funny.
feather in vibes. What is the
Yep.
likelihood?
Let's try this. Oliver Nelson,
Mm.
Blues in the Abstract.
I did not
Did
get
you
to
listen to that? How about Kamazi and the Epic?
You did? Really?
I'm telling you, I covered it, man. I was all over this stuff. And again, I referenced Birdland and just a track from Fletcher Henderson and Billy Eckstein. Just one track from them. And something came up on my YouTube, completely away from jazz music. But several years ago, Mom and I were at Branson, and there was a group there. It's Karen Beck and the New River, and the song that she sang was 4 Days Late. It's Southern gospel, and she definitely Southern gospel. It was just a sweet sound on Karen Beck and New River.
Okay.
So that's been my week in music. That's what I have to report. But I mean, I was into jazz all week long.
Good.
Yeah.
Have
How about you?
Have you been into other than jazz? How's the healing going? You are off the bags for now a month. You've been eating. Is life settling back in?
Still having difficulty swallowing. I've stopped. I can't swallow the calcium tablets.
Mm.
Actually, they're capsules. So we've found another way of getting calcium in gummies, basically.
Okay.
Calcium gummies, not the other kind of gummies that come from
somewhere else.
Yeah. Those, obviously, I can chew those. I took vitamin C tablet yesterday, and it was way too big. It did not go down well. This morning, I bit it in half and then swallowed each half separately. So swallowing is still difficult. I've lost 7 of my fingernails. I have 3 left before they're all off, and every toenail except one. As a result, and my oncologist says it's the chemo that's still in my body that's processing and working against or for the eradication of the cancer. So there are still things going on. Recovery is still in process. Several mornings, like at 5:30 or so, I get a horrible, terrible, no good, dirty, rotten feeling, as though stuff is backing up into what little esophagus I have, and it's quite disturbing, alarming even. And I have to get up and take a drink, and then take some anti-acid medicine that I have. So the first morning it happened, I was freaking out, but it subsided since that time. So we're still on the mend, still making. But hey, yesterday Mom and I were at Planet Fitness, stationary bikes, and both of us rode 20 minutes.
No kidding. Good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you feel
So
okay today?
I can feel it. I can feel it. A little bit lack of energy. Yeah,
You know,
but
coming from the man who was it just last year you did your age in 2 rides.
yeah,
Since you're no spring chicken, that was a lot of miles on the bike in October
yeah,
to really resetting. You're back at zero. You're back at
yeah,
square. You're back at zero, square
yeah,
one.
yeah,
So that's good. I'm glad 20 minutes is what you got in though, because it had to feel good.
yeah.
And
That's my weekend music. What about you, Drewley?
well, it's interesting because 2 out of 2 albums that I would have never thought that we both listened to, Roy Hargrove, The Vibe, and then Crystal Silence, Chick Corea, and I listened to him because I was thinking about pianists. I was thinking about Brad Meldau. I was thinking about Keith Jarrett. I was talking about Keith Jarrett's playing to a young man this week. Things got pushed out really quick for me on last Friday. I had my schedule booked this week, and next thing I know, I'm rescheduling everything that I have in the afternoons to work with the senior projects at the high school. I had the opportunity to film them so that they will have their records for the future. But senior presentations are a big deal. They'll spend several months wrapping up their education for a final presentation. My days got really long, really quick, and it's been good to get them all done. We finished last night with the last presentation, and yesterday we had 7 total. So there were 23 presentations this week alone to capture. They're usually between 20 and 30 minutes long with questions and answers. It was a great time. I missed my last week with NICA, which was a bit of a bummer. And if all goes well, we'll finish up editing some of these videos tonight, and I'll be able to slip out in the morning and go watch the last pre-ride and race of the season. And then we have a party in 10 days to celebrate the end of NICA. So it's been a busy week. So I've been listening to a lot of music when I can. The album that you listened to was the John Coltrane Giant Steps. But one night I listened to John Coltrane, A Love Supreme. And so I've had so much beautiful music in my ear this week. It's been great. The biggest one that shook me up was a night at Birdland with Art Blakey in that live recording, because Clifford, Horace, Art all together on one stage. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
My weekend music, if you're interested in, if you know, I'm getting ready for vacation. We're getting ready to go on a cruise, and it's been stressful, the preparation and the packing and all the details that you got to remember to do. So I of course, just like we always say, whatever I do, I listen to jazz music, and I have done that this week. I'm not going to go over everything I listen to, but Esbjorn Svensson, thank you very much for giving me some peace this week. Of course, the Art Blakey album. I did Moanin' Again this week, which, I mean, come on. You can't really go through a week of Art Blakey and not listen to Moanin' Again. But yeah, that's really truly about it for me that I'm going to cover in my weekend music. I'm looking forward. As soon as I'm walking up the ramp on that boat, all the stress is going to go away. I have a lot of great music, jazz music, of course, downloaded onto my phone because I won't have Wi-Fi connection. I won't get to listen to everything that I want to. So I've downloaded specific stuff for me to sit by the pool, put in my AirPods, relax on a chair, and tan and listen to some great jazz music while I'm on the boat. I love doing that. I can't wait to give you all a better perspective of what I've listened to on the boat when I return next week. I'll see you all then. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So that takes us into this.
What's new?
There you go. Hey, we've got an artist, Joel Ross is his name, and his album title is Gospel Music. Let me read the concept behind this album that I found. It's a personal spiritual exploration of faith and church upbringing. So he's got some titles on his track. One is called Trinity, Proto-Evangelism, which means the first gospel, Word for Word, a track called Repentance, the Sacred Place, The Giver, To the Throne, that is the throne of mercy seat, Be Patient. That's several of them that that you'll hear as you choose to go listen to Joel Ross, and the title of the album is Gospel Music.
What's Joel play?
Joel is a vibraphonist, so you can imagine what kind of flow and smooth and rhythmic and, did I say melodious, kind of music that gets you into a groove where it's comfortable, where not every track is calming and soothing, but for the most part, you're going to get a calm, soothing kind of music and a flow to this. So Joel Ross, Gospel Music.
And this came out just 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Brand new.
Right. And I believe that this is his fifth album. Yeah, it's Blue Note.
Yes, it is.
So if it's Blue Note, it meets the standards of Blue Note. One of the things you'll notice about this album, there are 17 tracks on it.
Whoa.
So it's going to take some deliberation to listen to the whole thing. I wouldn't suggest you try to listen to it all at one time. It's just going to take a ginormous amount of time. I didn't write
that.
down.
I listened to about the first 5 or 6 tracks, but I did not pay attention to how many songs are on it.
Yeah.
I was blown away by it, though.
Good. You liked it then. You
yeah, it's going to be
you'd suggest
great album for everybody to listen to. And of course, it's vibes.
Yeah.
Which is a break from the norm of trumpets or sax or pianos. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you liked it.
And that will take us to what's next. So next week, we should all be back on. And by the way, I'm going to say this because Matt's not here to interject it. One of these days, we're going to need to know where you're coming up with this. Because week after week after week, you are finding some of the most beautiful, eclectic, amazing music. So week after week, it's just another banger. So thanks for it's due diligence. It's tough. And I can admit that after having to do the slideshow. It's tough to limit the facts and have the best facts to present. So thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
I get an easy job because I just read off of a list. Yeah. Next week, when Matt is back, we are moving into 2001. There are 6 albums that Nate Chennon had in his book as noteworthy albums. And this week, we will be covering Chicago Underground Quartet. The album, Chicago Underground Quartet. This is on Thrill Jockey record label. So I don't know anything about it yet. I'm looking forward to getting into this album, and we'll be discussing it next week as we hit record and talk about Chicago Underground Quartet. As far as I know, this has nothing to do with the Art Ensemble of Chicago. So stay tuned for next week, and we'll get into this album.
Yep.
Any closing thoughts?
Nope, just appreciate the opportunity to be here with you. Sorry that Matt, well, not really, because I think he'd rather be on a cruise. But, you know, we did kind of miss him, didn't we?
We kind of did. I didn't realize how much he keeps me in line.
Oh, yeah. Keeps us in line.
Keeps us in line.
Yeah. Well, he's a firstborn, so he fulfills his responsibilities that way.
It's a good point.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. I'm glad we
It's
can make
been
all
good.
of this work.
It's been good.
It's been great. Love you, and we'll be
Okay.
on the horn soon.
Okay. Love you. Bye.